What is up, YouTube? It's boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander. Back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest out brew a magic world. As always, the deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd love if you could interact with the video, like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Today we are finishing out Modern Horizons 3 Precon Week, and we're doing our full brew for Ulalek Fused Atrocity. If you're looking for a more budget upgrade for the deck, this is probably the toughest deck to do it for, in my honest opinion, that's going to be linked down in the description below. I have my $50 upgrade that's up on the channel as well. But today we're doing a little bit more no-holds-barred brew for Ulalek. Normally on the channel, I tend to brew between $200 to $400 for budgets, because some decks need more budgets, some people want to do different things. But I'm going to be honest, this deck blows that out of the water. I didn't try to limit myself, mainly because you're not going to be able to play some of the really big Eldrazi I'm sure you want to play. So, full warning when you click the deck list, it's not cheap, but it was done that way for a reason. But let's talk about Ulalek, our first 6 mana, or our first 6 color commander, in that it's both colorless and all 5 colors. That is in hybrid of colorless and each mana pip for a 2/5 Eldrazi with Devoids. Devoid means that it doesn't actually have a color to the permanent, even though there's a color in the mana cost. Whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, you can pay double colorless. If you do, copy all spells you control, then copy all other activated and triggered abilities you control. You may choose new targets for the copies. This line of text seems simple when you read it. What you have to understand is that a lot of the Eldrazi have really great cast effects, and Ulalek is going to double them. I don't know how to do my best to describe how messy this deck is going to get. It's going to be a ton of fun. You're going to ruinate the tables that you play against, just like the Eldrazi want to do. This deck is kind of bonkers, and I think that's what makes it kind of interesting. So, first we'll talk about our team of Noodly Boys, our team of big Eldrazi we want to cast. We'll talk about how we're going to get there and make them easier to cast and ramp up to them. And then we're just talking about how to make value. This deck's just going to make value. We love value. Let's get into it. As far as Eldrazi goes, let's talk about some new ones. Benthic Anomaly is a new 7 mana 7/8 Eldrazi. Whenever you cast the spell, for each opponent, you choose a creature that player controls. Create a token that's a copy of it, except its power and toughness. Create a token that's a copy of one of those creatures, except its power is equal to the total power of those creatures, and its toughness equal to the total toughness, and it's a colorless Eldrazi creature. Of course, the card gets better the better creatures your opponents have. But I mean, at minimum, you're just getting another Eldrazi. With Ulalek, you can play double colorless and have this effect go off twice. That's going to be the static thing that's going to go through for all of these. Just remember that. But I like this. It's a fun new one. Drowner Hope reprint here. Whenever it ETBs, create 2 Scions, and we can sack a Scion to tap our creature. Remember, the Scions are great ramp for us because they can sack themselves to add a colorless and don't need to tap, meaning we can use them the same turn they come in. Well, one of the reasons we had to blow the budget of this deck wide open is the new Emrakul the World Anew. On cast, you gain control of all creatures target player controls. That is not till end of turn. That's just straight control. Of course, with Ulalek, we can do that twice. Flying protection from spells and from permanents that were cast this turn. When it leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. And if we manage to pitch it to another effect, we can pay 6 colorless mana to cast it off of Madness. The Emrakul is bonkers. It's a crazy card, and it's well worth its price tag if you're looking to put it in a deck like this. Hideous Taskmaster might be one of my favorite new Eldrazi for this deck, just not because it's just an Eldrazi, but because it's going to get played in some other red decks. But when you cast it, for each opponent, gain control up to 1 target creature that player controls until end of turn. Untap them, they get Trample, Haste, Annihilator 1, and Hideous Taskmaster comes down with Trample, Haste, Annihilator 1. A great way to take our opponent's creatures and hit them with them, and Annihilator is a rough ability, forcing our opponents to sacrifice that many permanents on attack. Can be a rough thing if we can point them the right direction. We're playing a pair of 2 Koziliks. I'm not playing the newest one. I honestly just don't think it's very good, but I think the other 2 we have are bonkers in their own right. Kozilek, a very popular Eldrazi commander in his own right. Whenever you cast a spell, if you have fewer than 7 cards in hand, draw cards equal to the difference. Menace, and you can pitch a card of mana value X to counter a spell of mana value X. A great ability. Again, great Eldrazi commander in its own right. Here we're just using it for its ability to refill our hand, and it's a 12/12. And then Kozilek, Butcher of Truth. Whenever we cast the spell, draw 4 cards. Annihilator 4, and it's one of our shuffle titans. They're called that because whenever they're put into a graveyard from anywhere, we shuffle our graveyard into our library. So a way to prevent us from being milled and things like that against some of those decks that may try that. Our favorite Eldrazi, Roaming Throne, just like it's a favorite creature in every tribal deck that comes in, pick a type, it's that type, double the triggered abilities of each chosen thing. This means that Ulalek will get to go off twice, and we could pay 2 colorless mana twice, if that's something that you want to do and have some fun with that. Spawn Bed Protector, beginning your end step, return up to 1 Eldrazi creature card from your graveyard to your hand and make 2 Scions. This is great because if people get rid of our Eldrazi's, they're coming back to hand. Twins of Discord, whenever you attack, choose odd or even. Creatures with mana value of that quality can't block this turn. And it says each other colorless creature you control has Bloodthirst 2. Bloodthirst 2 is Bloodthirst's ability. It says that if you've dealt combat damage to an opponent this turn, it comes in with that many +1/+1 counters, meaning our Eldrazi's can come in and get bigger. Remember, this is an ability that we could copy with Ulalek as well. So Twins of Discord is already good stopping people from being able to block, but that's a great ability on the back end. And then we get into my favorite Eldrazi, Ulamog. First with Ulamog's Dreadsire, a new card for the deck. Vigilance wards sacrifice a permanent with mana value 1 or greater, and we can tap it to make a 10/10 Eldrazi. Again, just an interesting ability. It's not a slam dunk like some of the other Eldrazi's in this list, but it's great. You know, it's a big boy in its own right, being a 10/10 with Vigilance, and it has an interesting ability, kind of that Desolation Twin style ability. But we'll talk about my favorite Eldrazi, both my favorite of the old ones and my favorite of the new ones. Ulamog the Ceaseless Hunger, on cast, exile 2 target permanents, indestructible. When it attacks, defending player exiles the top 20 cards of the library, just gone. And then the new one, Ulamog the Defiler. Whenever you cast it, target opponent exiles half their library, rounded up. That means that with Ulalek, you could then mill somebody out into exile, just FYI. Wards sacrifice 2 permanents. When it ETBs with a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the greatest mana value among cards in exile. Again, if you nuke someone's library, hopefully you're picking the person you think is going to have the highest CMC in their library so that you get it. And it has Annihilator X, where X is a number of +1/+1 counters on it. Ulamog the Defiler is a really fun card. I think it replaces my favorite Ulamog of the Ceaseless Hunger, just because it's in a deck that can give this haste or give it any way to attack the turn it came down. It's just going to brutalize whoever you push it towards. Even if that Annihilator 6 or 7, unless you're attacking this into a tokens deck, there's not a lot of decks that are going to be able to survive that Annihilator and then survive the combat that's going to come through. So Ulamog, I love it. They get more and more fun every time I see them, and I love getting some new Ulamogs. Well, as far as ramp and cost reduction goes, we have some things like Ugin the Ineffable, making colorless spells cost 2 less to cast, and a little bit of removal on it. It that Heralds End, a new uncommon from the set that is pretty darn good. Color spells you cast with mana value 7 or greater cost 1 less to cast and gives a little buff to all of our creatures. Again, great. Love it. Making things a little bit cheaper. Sowing Myca Spawn, we can kick it. Whenever we cast it, whether we kick it or not, we get to search our library for a land and put it on the battlefield. But if we kick it, we get to exile a land as well, which is kind of interesting. But hey, 4 mana Eldrazi that comes with a ramp ability. This means that for 4 mana and 2 mana for Ulalek's ability, we could get 2 lands, which is not nothing. That's actually very helpful. Chromatic Orrery for some big mana, 7 mana for 5 mana each turn, and we basically just get to eliminate mana needing to be any color. Dreamstone Hedron, 6 mana for 3 mana every turn, and we can sack it to draw 3. Forsaken Monument, 5 mana. All creatures get +2/+2. Whenever we tap a permanent for colorless, we get another colorless, and whenever we cast a colorless spell, you gain 2 life. A great artifact for these colorless decks, whether you're playing Eldrazi or something else. Hedron Archive, 4 mana, get 2 every turn, and again, we get sack to draw cards. A new uncommon from the set, an Idol of False Gods. We pay 1 into it to make a spawn, or 2 into it to make a spawn every turn that can sack for a colorless. Whenever Eldrazi dies, we put a counter on this, and if it has 8 or more counters, it becomes a 0/0 Eldrazi with Annihilator 2, which is just perfect. I mean, that becomes a very scary threat the more that the Eldrazi die. And then, Urza's Incubator, making Eldrazi cost 2 less when we go to cast them. Worn Power Stone, 3 mana to get 2 every turn, but it does come in tapped. Awakening Zone gets us a spawn every turn. Path of Annihilation gets us 2 spawn when we come in. Gives all of our Eldrazi the ability to tap for mana of any color. This is important because then these spawns, obviously not the ones that this came in on this because they wouldn't have haste, but we could keep the spawns around and actually tap them for a mana of any color instead of sacrificing them. But whenever we cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, we gain 4 life. I love it. We're seeing the ramp for a tribe that really doesn't need it, but it just gets better. Okay, so we talked about ramp and reduction. We talked about our big boy and big noodly boys we want to cast. Well, let's talk about just how to get value. I mean, if you haven't seen the value up to now, I'm just going to continue to throw more value at you. Abstruse Archaic. Pay 1, tap it, copy target activated or triggered ability from your colorless source. You may choose new targets for the copy. Again, can just copy pretty much everything we've talked about at this point. Triggered abilities would be anything that happens on cast, on ETB, things like that. Activated abilities of some of those, again, lots of things we can copy with Abstruse Archaic. Remember that all those Devoid creatures, even though they may have a colored mana pip in the top right, they are colorless, meaning that we can copy it with the Archaic. As last, the Swelling Scourge is the alternate commander for the deck, and I think very helpful in the main deck. Whenever you enter another colorless creature you control die, you get an experience counter. And then for Wooburg, creatures we control get +X to end turn, where X is the number of experience counters we have. And then Scions and Spawns you control gain Indestructible and Annihilator 1 till end of turn. Aslax, of course, cares a little bit more about the spawns, and in the coming weeks we're going to actually brew around Aslask as well. But a good way to kind of just buff our entire board, and if we have a ton of spawns laying around, now they become tough to deal with because they get that +X boost and Annihilator 1. Chittering Dispatcher is actually a ton of fun. It has Myriad, so whenever it attacks, you're going to get a copy of it attacking all other opponents. It says when it leaves the battlefield, you create a spawn, which is cool because then that means the copies that you got attacking another player, the other players, are going to make spawns when they leave, and then we can copy that with some of our other abilities. Glaring Flushraker seems like a ton of fun. Whenever you cast a colorless spell, we get a spawn. And whenever another colorless creature ETBs under our control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Again, a way to just dole some damage out as we're growing and getting bigger and bigger. Titan's Vanguard says whenever you cast this spell and whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on each colorless creature you control, and it has trample. Again, not the best Eldrazi in the world, but hey, spreading counter around is definitely not a bad thing, especially when our creatures are just going to get bigger and bigger. The commander of the previous Eldrazi precon we saw for Commander Masters fits very well in this deck, and that's Ulalek Void Gorger. A 6 mana 7/4 that gives all colorless spells we cast with mana value 7 or greater double Cascade. With Ulalek, you'll then be able to pay the 2 mana and get quad Cascade on anything 7 or greater. That is just insanity. If you've never played against Ulalek, Ulalek will be much worse, and my brain already hurts preparing to play against one of these at the table. Well, we're playing our new, I guess you can call it Panharmonicon. I don't really know what else to call it. It's a combination of a lot of things and Echoes of Eternity. A 6 mana enchantment, Eldrazi enchantment. If a triggered ability of a colorless spell you control or another colorless permanent you control triggers it triggers an additional time. That's scary in its own right. But we add on whenever you cast a color spell, copy it. And we choose your targets for the copy. This card makes me very scared to play against any Eldrazi deck in the future because that's just brutal. All of those big titans that have something on cast gets doubled. And not only does it get doubled, you get a copy of it, which then if it has anything that happens on ETB or anything like that, you get those. The only good side, I guess, to the copy is that they're legendaries, so, the copy's not going to get too much good, but they come in, you'd have to, sacrifice 1 to the legendary rule, it would leave and trigger all of those death triggers. I mean, this card's just bonkers. It's well worth the cost of it, and I think it's going to be one of the reasons why I'm going to both love and hate playing against these decks in the future. Garruk's Uprising to give trample to our whole board and draw a card anytime a creature with power 4 or greater comes in. Kozilek's Unsealing seems kind of fun. Whenever we cast a creature spell with 4, 5, or 6, make 2 spawns. Whenever you cast a creature spell with mana value 7 or greater, draw 3 cards. Just a very interesting enchantment, and I think it's going to put in work in a lot of Eldrazi decks. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. No deck is ever perfect. This is my first honest shot at brewing this style of Eldrazi deck. And we will be brewing a couple more in the weeks to come. But these were the 3 Eldrazi that didn't make the list that I really wanted to make the list. The first was Ulamog the Infinite Gyre. I really like Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, but I wanted to kind of focus on some of the newer Eldrazi instead of just throwing in the old Shuffle Titans. But I think it's well worth the pay. Desolation Twin's pretty fun, making a 10/10 on cast. Basically, Ulalek's going to allow that to get 2 of them, right, or more of them, depending on what you have out. And then Bane of Balagad, whenever it attacks, defending player exiles 2 permanents they control. So effectively a better Annihilator, too. But let's get into our playtests. First one up, we have a 3-lander with a Kozilek. All is Dust, probably one of the best board wipes in existence, in my opinion. Hedron Archive and Eldrazi Confluence. Kind of interesting hand. Turn when we get a Soul Ring because why wouldn't we at this point? Remember that Ulalek is 5 mana, and we are very quickly getting our way there. Turn 2, we play this Llanowar Waste. The thing that makes the Pain Lands so good in this deck is that they tap for colorless, allowing us to use things like Forsaken Monument to get an extra colorless, or they can get a color. We have 4 mana here. I don't see any reason not to just slam the Hedron Archive and the Expedition map, and this is what makes Eldrazi decks so potent. We are in turn 2 with, okay, we topped the Soul Ring, which helped a ton, but we're going to be next turn 2, 4, 5, 6 mana with the option to play this Brushland for 7 and then crack that Expedition map if we want to. This is why these decks can be so scary. Playing the Brushlands, so now we're at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. We have the All Is Dust. We have Ulalek. We have the Confluence, so we choose 3 and we can choose the same mode more than once. +3, -3 to a creature. Basically blink a permanent or make a Scion. Oh, I guess we could Confluence here and get 3 more Scions. But I think I just want to dump Ulalek down here, get it down and get it ready to party. That would take these, and then we could use the Hedron Archive to crack the Expedition map. I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to get yet, because I haven't looked at the... I haven't, you know, I'm still getting used to Eldrazi decks, but I think something like Sanctum of Ugin could be good. So next turn we'd have 7, this would be 8. We still can't cast Ulamog. We'd probably want, what is it, the one that reduces all Eldrazi by 2. What is it? Eye of Ugin. Yeah, reduces all Eldrazi by 2, and that goes into hand. So we couldn't play it this turn, but we can play it next turn. Draw for turn, play that Eye of Ugin. Everything costing 2 less. So from 7, so 7 mana can get us a 9 mana Eldrazi. So we're just 1 mana off of that Kozilek. I guess we'll Confluence. What does it say? Whenever you cast an Eldrazi spell, which it isn't, so we don't get to do that. But I'll just make 3 spawns. Kind of have no reason not to. Just make the spawns, and that way it'll give us a big explosive turn next turn. Remember, this is what? Turn 4. We have and now we have enough mana for both Ulamog and Kozilek this turn. So the question will become, we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 mana -2 from Eye of Ugin. So we could Ulamog for 2 less and use Ulalek's ability to copy it and copy the trigger. Now the copy, of course, wouldn't really matter because it's just gonna come in and get sacrificed, but we'd be able to exile 4 permanents. We could get Kozilek down to draw up to 7, which wouldn't be a bad idea. If anybody has a decent board, we get Taskmaster. I kind of like the idea of going for Kozilek. It would be 8 and then 2 for the Ulalek. Well, we probably wouldn't want to copy it, right? Because we can't draw up to. It says if you're fewer than less than 7, draw cards equal to the difference. Once we draw here, it's not going to do that. So I think I would rather just sack 1, draw some cards here, and then, you know, get the territory down, get the Talis. I guess we couldn't get the. I guess we couldn't get the Talisman down, and then sit into next turn where we can just keep going off. Now the cool part here is we have a 2, 10, 7, and 7 in our hands. We could potentially counter something if need be. But I think this turn we Underground River, so we're at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 colorless mana. We can Ulamog. If the board's pretty set up at this point, we just All Is Dust. But I think the play here is probably Ulamog and then Ulalek it to copy it, exiling 4 permanents. It comes in, and now next turn it's probably just going to brutalize somebody. And at this point, I think we've got more than enough value to move on to the next play test. This one we're keeping a 2-lander with a Talisman, a Herald's Horn, and a Worn Power Stone with Ulamog, Drowner of Hope, and that on the top end. So looking pretty good. Turn 1, nothing comes in tap, so we'll just get something down. Turn 2, I think our play here this turn is that Talisman to get that started. Turn 3, we get the Opal Palace down. We can Warm Power Stone, that would give us Ulalek next turn for sure. We can also Herald's Horn, and that would allow us to potentially put another Eldrazi into our hand. Either way, we're getting Ulalek next turn. I kind of like the idea of the Power Stone, though, to get that started. And, you know, nothing left to do with that 1 mana, but that's okay. This turn, Enclave down. So now we've got 4, 5, 7 mana. Which means we could still now Herald's Horn and Ulalek. And so now at the start of our turn, this isn't an Eldrazi, so it won't go automatically to hand. But it'll still go to hand, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana, but we're able to cast 1 greater. Now we have 8 mana, but able to cast 1 greater, so 9. Still a little bit outside of Ulamog, but that's okay. I like the idea of Titan's Vanguard here and pay for the Ulalek trigger to copy it, which will put a counter on Ulalek. This the copy will come in right first, and then I think just the copy will end up with a counter, if I recall. Because we could stack the triggers where the copy would come in first, then the counters would go on. I think. I could be wrong on that. That might be a little bit too much, but either way, that's still a good turn. That was 4 mana, so we do have about 4 mana left. I don't really see much that I'd want to do at this point, especially after, well, we'd be less because we paid for the Ulalek, but that's okay. They don't have haste, but that's okay. We do not reveal an Eldrazi, but Discreet Reality is a great land. Getting the Urza's Cave, which goes search for another land, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the ability to cast things for 1 less. The Urza's Cave could be good for like Eye of Ugin, so that we can get this Ulamog down for a little bit cheaper. Desperate Reality says for each opponent, exile up to 1 target permanent that player controls with an even mana value. And if at least 3 colors mana was spent to cast a spell or permanent from an odd mana value from your graveyard to the battlefield. Drown of Hope could be interesting. It could get us enough mana for Ulamog next turn. So maybe we do that. Make Ulalek, use Ulalek's ability to copy it. They're both going to come in and get us 4... get us 4 Scions when they both come in. Because it's copy all the trigger, yeah. Then we would just attack with both of the Vanguards here, just to put 2, put 2 +1/+1 counters on. We would just put 2 +1/+1 counters on all of them. So now our board's just getting, bigger. The nice part here is now those Drowners of Hopes are both a little bit bigger because of the Titans attacking. And now, I mean, we're in all reality, the Scions will all have 2 now as well, but I'm not going to do that there. And the reality now is we're going to start pushing our advantage in at this point. It's going to come down to our opponents trying to stop that. We have Drowner of Hope to sack the Scions to tap things down if they try to get in our way. Would we have had enough this turn to crack that Urza's Cave? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 for the original one and 2 for that. I don't think we would have had enough to crack that cave this turn. But let's go Herald's Horn. It's not. We do get an unclaimed territory, though. I mean, we have 11, so that's plenty enough to Ulamog and copy it. And then I mean, this is going to be brutal. The Scions are 5/5s now. I mean, this is probably a good enough board state to probably run somebody over. Let me know, what do you think of Ulalek down in the comments section below. This deck is particularly brutal. I think it's a fun idea for a deck. Eldrazi are not going to get rid of their bad reputation at any time soon. It's definitely a fun deck, but it's definitely a powerful deck. If you've been looking for an Eldrazi precon to grab, this is the one, I think, the more that I look at it. But let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I will catch you guys next time.